I've been flirting with girls and teaching students to flirt with girls for the last 20 years. In that time, I've seen a lot. I've seen what works, and I've seen what doesn't. Today, I'm gonna take your go-to lines. I'm gonna show you what's good, what's bad, and what's just plain ugly. Hey, what's up, guys? This is the one you asked for, literally. I went on our Facebook group, I asked, what are your favorite lines and what are the lines you want to learn the most about? By the way, if you're not on our Facebook group, Todd V Insiders, get on it. But I took your go-to lines and I'm ranking them from best to worst. So let's see how they all stack up. There's some pretty crazy ones in here, and do stay till the end because I saved a couple of the best for last. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so the first line we have right out of the gate is very similar to a line I use. In fact, this looks like someone took lines from my infield and is trying to copy them or trying to replicate them. And they're doing an okay job, although they've done a few things a little bit off. The line is, part of me thinks you're cute and adorable, but part of me also feels like you'll be a bad influence on me. Okay, so what is good about this line? Well, first of all, it's a push-pull, right? It has the positive emotional spike, you're cute, you're adorable. It has the you'll be a bad influence, right? So that's actually really good. The idea of bad influence is also very useful because it's a concept or an idea that is sexual in nature. The idea of a bad influence towards what? How is she being a bad influence? It's because she's sexy, etc. So that's all very, very positive in terms of it's useful. It has that dichotomous nature of the positive and negative spike. Wow, that sounded complicated. But basically, yeah, there's a good thing and a bad thing in it. It's going to trigger some emotions. Okay, so what is less good about it? Well, what's less good about it is two things. Number one, it's kind of too many words. Part of me thinks you're cute and adorable, but part of me also feels like you'll be a bad influence on me, right? It's kind of long. And when you say stuff that's extra long, it makes it sound more logical. It makes it sound more thought out. It makes it less playful. It makes it less fun. It also just makes it hit less, right? Shakespeare once said, brevity is the soul of wit, and he was right. So it's just a little too long. My other minor critique about this, and it's not always a critique, it depends on context, is it is a little bit soft, okay? So when you call a girl cute, number one, it's a positive, and number two, it's a soft word. Cute is a very politically correct, nice word. You can't get in trouble for saying cute really as much as you could like hot or some other word, which by the way, you shouldn't even say, but the point is it's a soft word. Adorable, also kind of a soft word. It's a soft, nice word. And then the idea that the girl would be a bad influence on you kind of implies a little bit of innocence, which also implies a little softness as well. So the risk with this, aside from it being too long, is that it could be a little bit soft. There are some teases that are very harsh and hit very hard, and there are some teases that are on the softer side. Now, in many cases, even most cases, a softer tease may be preferred. However, early on, if it's your first tease with a very hot girl or a girl that you haven't really gotten on her radar yet, the soft tease may just not be strong enough. And also, if throughout your interaction all you have are soft teases, you may find you game really well with girls that are around the level of like maybe an 8, but not with girls that are a level of like 10s. Now, obviously, this depends on the girl's perception of you. It depends on a lot of other factors, but it is something to keep in mind. So overall, how do I feel about this opener? Do I think it's good? Yeah, in general, it's quite good. It has a lot of the right themes. It has a push-pull. The words cute and adorable, although I said they're soft, they are very good words in general in game. So overall, I like this. However, it is too long and it is a little too soft in general. So especially, here's an example. Since you have cute and adorable, and then you might be a bad influence, right? Maybe if you said, you're cute and adorable, but I'm just not so sure about you. Something like that, not implying that you're innocent and she'd be the one being a bad influence on you necessarily, right? Or, you're cute and adorable, but just, I don't know, I just feel like there's something off about you, right? That's a much more hard kind of a negative spike. It's not actually mean, right? But it hits a lot harder. In this case, you come off as a little too innocent. So because of the long-windedness, because of the little bit of softness, little bit of innocence conveyed, I'm gonna give this A tier rather than S tier, but it is a very good general flirt. And it is similar to the things I will do. However, it is phrased differently. And if I can teach you anything from a verbal game perspective, it's that getting the right word versus the almost right word actually does make a difference. And in this case, it takes it from outstanding, world-class to just pretty damn good. Next line we have is a bit of a funny one. This is the kind of line that you would see in a movie and you'd think, oh, that was really clever. And the line is, you look like my first wife and I've never been married. Okay, so like I said, this is something you would see in a movie or a TV show, or this is the kind of line that like you hear someone say, oh, it was the cleverest line I ever heard or something like that. And when a line is clever, that is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, right? The line being clever definitely is better than boring. However, when a line is clever, it looks like it's a line. It looks like it's a bit try-hard. It looks like it's rehearsed. It looks like it didn't just happen. And just happening is a much better thing in game. This is also one that's much better with context. Like again, I said this looks like it came out of a movie. Here's how it would play out in a movie. You'd say, you look just like my first wife. And then you said, oh, you've been married before? No, never. Or how many times were you married? Haven't been married. Right? And so you would have more of a setup and more of a punch. And if there was a dialogue around it, it would come off much cleverer. However, in the real world, you can't make the other person say the scripted line so that you can have the perfect punchline. And so therefore, you have to make the punchline obvious. Right? If you could set it up so that they say a perfect line to feed you, they spike it, serve it up so you can spike it down, then that would work. But that's not going to happen in the real world the same way it will in movies. So as is, it has to look contrived. So is this clever and will you get points for it and will you get noticed with it? Yes. Does it show man to woman? Does it do some of the things that a flirty line should do? Absolutely yes. So it's all very good in terms of that. However, does it feel and look like a line? Yes. The other thing is it is very much putting the girl on a pedestal. Right? Now, because you're being teasing and lighthearted and joking around, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as if you actually like declared unconditional love for her or said a deeply romantic statement or whatever. Because you're kidding around, it does soften it a bit. But there is no real negative spike here. It's pure compliment. There's no push-pull nature, right? So this one is, it's not really that good. It's better than nothing. Look, if you're a guy who has trouble getting man to woman at all, you have trouble, showing any kind of interest and you tend to be too serious and not lighthearted, this could be fine. It would improve that. But I'm going to give this one, we'll call this one C tier, maybe C plus tier, something like that. It's not completely awful. It absolutely could work. You could use this and totally do a good pickup with it. No problem whatsoever, you could. But it is setting you back a little bit. It's giving you a little bit more of a hurdle than you needed to, and it does come off like a line for sure. It doesn't come off like that cool guy and it just happened. This next line is one I hear from students all the time, and honestly, I cringe just a little bit when I hear it, because it's well-intentioned and there are good elements to it, but it's just not that good. I'm sorry. It's just not. The line is, you're definitely the party type. Okay, and this comes from a good concept. It actually comes from an old school line, which is maybe with two different girls, you say, oh, you're the good girl and you're the bad girl, right? That's the general gist. That's the general idea of this line. But you're the party type has some problems. Number one, what if she just disagrees, right? It's because it's not you seem like, or I think you might be, or something like you are definitely the party type. And she goes, no, I'm not. Now what? Oops, you're in a situation. It's not good, all right? Don't do that to yourself, all right? Also, party type has all kinds of connotations you don't want to get into. If you say you seem like you're the party type and it seems like you're judging her, well, now it sounds like you're judging her if she's the party type. Now you're saying, oh, I want a girl who's not a party type. Well, I don't know a better way to have a girl try and make you go on multiple dates with her and to, build a deep connection before sleeping with you than to indicate that you might judge her if she seems like too much of a party girl, or you might judge her if she has sex too early. So I don't like setting that up. On the other hand, maybe the girl will be encouraged by this and she'll be like over the top about it, right? You seem like you're the party type. Maybe she takes it as a positive. And now she's like, yeah, I party like crazy, I'm wild, etc. And now she has this persona of being wild to live up to, right? And generally, when you are kind of creating labels for girls and creating these ideas of what categories you want to put girls into, you want to be, one, you want to put them into categories that are going to be useful for getting an outcome. Number two, you want to have some level of control, input, and knowledge to what categories you're putting the girl in, right? You don't want to be introducing randomness and chaos into a situation, and this line really tends to introduce randomness and chaos, so that's not very, very good. Also, this idea of you're definitely the party type, it's not really a push-pull. It's not really a tease. It's more of a logical statement. It's more of a guess. And also the types of guys who do this oftentimes have a lot of guesses in their game. They do, you're the party type, you seem like you're German, I bet you work in finance. Like all these like crazy, like low percentage guesses and things like that. And that tends to be part and parcel of kind of bad game overall. So this does have some good elements, right? It's similar to that whole, you seem like the good girl, you seem like the bad girl. And so in that sense, it's trying to do something good here. But party girl just has so many connotations that are uncontrollable and not useful, right? You don't want it to come off like you're judging the girl for being sexual. On the other hand, you don't want to come off like you're encouraging the girl to be crazy and out of control and make the set go off the rails that way. So you want to be very, very careful in terms of all that. And it's just not the most useful thing. And it's actually technically not a flirt. It's actually just a statement. It's just a guess. So it doesn't really even hit hard. It doesn't really have that push-pull emotional context. And to the extent that it would, to the extent that a girl would get offended by this, if the girl does get offended, she'll probably get deeply offended, right? Weirdly, right? Weirdly, it's so inoffensive, there's nothing actually offensive, so the only time the girl's gonna get offended is if it happens to be like her pet peeve, in which case she's gonna get deeply offended in a bad way. She'll be like, what the fuck do you mean I'm a party girl? I'm not this, and this. So it's just bad. It's not going to lead to high percentage outcomes, and also it doesn't achieve very much for risking all kinds of chaos in the interaction. So I actually really don't like this one. I'm actually going to give this one like a C-. I really do not like this particular tease. I think it leads to more bad things than good things. This next one goes into old school neg theory. So here we go. The line is, I love the way that necklace fits you. Many things we can find in Happy Meals. Okay, this is just awful. This is terrible. It's attempting to be a neg. It's attempting to be this compliment of you're saying something positive, I love that thing, and then you're saying it in a negative way. So like there's this ironic backhanded thing of saying you don't love it. Except when you're saying the girl got her necklace out of a Happy Meal, that's not subtle or ironic or backhanded. That is a flat out insult. And if you know anything about negs, negs are not supposed to be insults. So this is not a tease. This is not a neg. This is an insult. And it's just bad game. It may be witty, right? It may be witty bad game. So the girl may like, you know, she may be like a loser in the battle of wits as she tells you to fuck off and never talk to her again. Yeah, you outwitted her and then she left and nobody got, you know, it didn't go anywhere. It's just negative. It's just mean. It's just harsh. It's just bad. This is full on D tier. It's bad. Don't use it. Please don't use it or anything like it. Remember, negs are not insults. Once again, negs and teases, not insults. Next up, we have another attempt at neg theory, but this one is a bit better. This one's a bit more how neg theory was intended. And it was, hey, I love your eyes, especially the left one. Okay, so this one is a lot more subtle, right? Because especially the left one, it's not an insult. It's not an outright mean statement. It's just a little strange, right? It's a little bit kind of insecure making, because the idea here is I love your eyes, and then especially the left one, it implies that her eyes are somehow different or that they're uneven or something like that. And as many people are probably aware, one of the hallmarks of beauty is symmetry, right? So you said I love your eyes, i.e. you're beautiful, but then you said your left eye is different than your right eye, which would indicate something not quite so beautiful. And in that sense, this does follow the format of what a neg actually is, as opposed to being an insult. So in that sense, it's much better. And I actually think this is a relatively okay line. It's a bit clever, a bit funny, and it could work relatively well. It definitely has the possibility of making the girl like insecure, be like, wait, my eyes are different or something like that. And that could be good. So overall, it's pretty good. I don't think it's top tier though, only because it's just a little too weird. It's a little too much of an event. It's a little too much like something happened in the interaction. It's not like it just happened. It's like, no, some event just happened. This was unnatural. This was not just, you know, boy meets girl and things go swimmingly and they hook up. So it's a little too gamey still. It's a little too weird. It's the kind of thing that the girl repeats to her friend afterwards and says like, he said this about me. And the girl's like, that's weird, right? And so even though it may have had an emotional impact at the time, it's going to be remembered, and later on, without the emotional impact, it's going to be seen as weird, and it's going to create kind of an off taste in the girl's mouth. So for that reason, even though it does fit in as the right format for a neg and it has a lot of good elements, the best I can really give this is about B+ tier. I can't give this A tier or S tier, unfortunately, but it is a lot closer and a hell of a lot better than that other one, which was a flat out insult. This next one, I actually really like. It's almost perfect. Almost. It's just a little off, but it's almost perfect. And it is, don't look at me like that. We aren't at that stage yet. Okay? And probably it should be delivered more playfully than how I just read it off there, right? Don't look at me like that. We're not there yet, right? And see what I just did? I actually just made it better. I just made the line better, okay? And that actually points out what's wrong with the line. The line is good. Don't look at me like that is great. I use that all the time. I think it's amazing. It's one of my absolute best go-tos, especially if there is a look of some kind. So that part's absolutely incredible, okay? We aren't at that stage yet is too logical and too long, right? Notice I said, instead of saying we aren't at that stage yet, we aren't there yet. Change at that stage, 3 syllables, to 1 syllable, there. And also more casual, and it's become significantly better. So the line itself and the concept of the line, the genesis of the line is very, very good. The we aren't at that stage yet is too formal, and it takes away from the informal, fun, spontaneous nature of the line itself. So as stated, don't look at me like that, we aren't at that stage yet. It's like A+ tier. It's not quite S tier, but it's still pretty damn good. It's a little too logical, it's not there. If you change it, we aren't there yet, instead of we aren't at that stage yet, or something else equally casual or less kind of like formulaic and logical, then I think this is an S tier tease. This is one that I absolutely use myself. It's one of the absolute best, especially with context, although you technically don't even need context. You can say don't look at me like that when the girl wasn't even necessarily looking at you a particular way. Probably she should at least have been looking in your direction at the time, so it's at least a little bit congruent and plausible, but you don't even have to have a look to go off of, although it's better if you do. But yeah, this is a very good tease. As listed, it's AA+ tier, something like that, with a slight modification. This is an S tier tease. It's one of my favorites. I think it's awesome. This next line is a huge verbal game revelation lesson, which is that having the right concept takes you a long way, but phrasing it the right way really does matter. And the line is, you know, you might make a great girlfriend someday if you behave. Okay, so what's good about this to begin with? So it's a push-pull, right? Which I love push-pulls, you know that, right? You might make a good girlfriend someday if you behave. You might have this reward, you might be positive if you X. So there's this possibility of negative. Push-pull, so that's great. However, what do I not like about it? First of all, you might make a great girlfriend someday. That's a pretty strong statement, right? So I know it's in a push-pull, I know it's with a positive and a negative and all that kind of stuff, but that's a very strong compliment, and it's a very relationship-y compliment, and it's a very like seeing way into the future and overthinking things kind of a compliment. So I don't like that. It's a very provider type of a compliment as opposed to a lover type of a compliment, if you will, right? It's more like I want to date you and marry you, not, hey, you're kind of cute, let's have fun together, right? So it's a lot more formal and providery. So I don't like that stuff. The second thing, that if you behave. So this is a little similar to the party girl thing, although it's the flip side of it, right? Which is you're indicating that you want the girl to behave. You want her to be less fun. You want her to not be, do naughty things, not break the rules. Well, isn't having sex with a guy she just met like breaking the rules? So again, if you behave, it sets a lot of those same wrong frames. And again, it's the wrong frame in that relationship-y sense. So you're saying you'd make a great girlfriend, and if you behave, you're indicating a very sort of prudish attitude. You're indicating a very sort of like, don't be a party girl, let's not make bad decisions together type of attitude. So it's a lot of bad framing there as well. Finally, it's a little bit too long-winded. There are too many words in it. And also, it's a little bit soft. The concept of making a great girlfriend is not offensive at all. If you behave is not offensive at all. So while you are push-pulling, you have a positive and negative spike, it seems as though you've kind of censored yourself, or you're tiptoeing around trying not to be extra offensive, right? You're willing to have a negative spike, but you're not willing to take a risk on it. You're willing to have like a mild negative spike, right? It's like you went to the hot sauce festival and ordered the mild, right? It's not quite committed. It's not quite as strong as it could be. So overall, it has some good elements. It's generally okay. It's a little too nice. It's a little too cutesy. It's a little bit too much from a provider frame. So I'm going to give this one, we'll be generous. It's either like a B-, C+. We'll give it a B- tier. It's okay. It'll work for the most part. The thing about this one is it will probably get a positive reaction at the time, right? But so it'll help with getting that immediate reaction. It'll help you with getting that little flick of spark of attraction. It'll help you with making it a little man to woman. But it's subtly setting the wrong frame. And it's the kind of thing that even if it feels good in the moment and seems to have worked in the moment, it's going to be subtly working against you 10 minutes down the road. So it has its problems. It's leveled, really. If you want to like label it a particular way, this is definitely a leveled tease. This is the kind of tease that a guy who's relatively attractive and knows a little game but doesn't quite fully get it would say. This next one is going old school, and it comes from a source that shall not be named. But the line is, "You're adorable. I might adopt you as my little sister." And this is a funny one because it has a lot of really good ideas in it, but the execution is just no. It's just bad execution. All right, you're adorable is absolutely fine with the right delivery, and adorable is great. It's actually a good juxtaposition in a way because the adorable is very polite and sweet and positive, whereas the idea that you're swearing around the girl is a little bit of a negative spike. The adorable thing makes adorable actually more sexual, which is something that's maybe lacking in it. So that part I like. You're adorable, I like. I might adopt you as my little sister. I sort of kind of like, and I sort of kind of hate. So the thing about the little sister line and the idea behind the little sister line is actually quite good and even a little bit possibly brilliant. And the idea is that with hot girls, you want to put them in frames that don't sexualize them. Right? So if you tell a hot girl she might be a model, you're very much sexualizing her. If you tell a hot girl she's hot, you're sexualizing her. When you tell a girl with some of these other ones that she's going to be a bad influence on you, you're sexualizing her. And in doing so, you are teasing and you are flirting, but you are giving away some of your sexual power. You're giving her a little extra sexual power. When you frame the girl as similar to your little sister, hopefully we don't sleep with our little sisters. So given that, you're desexualizing her. Right? You're putting her in a frame that's not sexual. You're taking away some of her sexual power. So that idea is very good. But the "I might adopt you as my little sister" is a lot less good than "you remind me of my little sister." Right? "I might adopt you as my little sister" is like indicating she's actually going to become your little sister, and it's going to be this incestuous thing. As opposed to "you remind me of my little sister" is much more subtle. It's that desexualizing thing, but it's not weird and creepy. Right? So that's a big thing. Also, the "you're adorable, I might adopt you as my little sister." There's just different tones to this. "You're adorable" is a little more sexual and forward. The might adopt you as my little sister" is very much like this like desexualizing thing. And so there's this internal incongruence. So number one, the "adopt you as my little sister" is a poor way of using that idea. The frame of desexualizing is a good idea. And the little sister thing can even be used in certain contexts, but the adopt as little sister thing, I don't like. I think it's bad. I think it's a little creepy. I think it's a little weird. And then paired with the "you're adorable," which by itself is a fine line, it's just a little bit incongruent. So overall, I'm gonna have to give this one I'll give this one a B- also. It will get a reaction, definitely, but it's setting some weird frames. It's setting some frames you don't like, and there's something a little off about it, a little like kind of about it. And potentially it's a little leveling in the sense that it's uncalibrated as well. So I'm going to give this one a B-. May surprise some people. It's not, a lot of people think this is a very good one, and it's one that will get a reaction in the moment. It's kind of a fool's gold one where it will get a reaction. It might even get a big reaction, but understand that game isn't about getting reactions. It's about getting results. And this is the kind of reaction where you're not setting a good frame while getting it. So this next one is really close to good, but it's just bad. Sorry, it just is. It has good elements in it, all mixed together into something bad. It's kind of like if you put like, I don't know, strawberries, black olives, and like steak. I don't know. That might actually taste good. I don't fucking know. But it's just a weird combination that it just like, they're good elements maybe, but they just don't come together quite right. So anyway, the line is, "You have such a mysterious smile. I can't tell if it's a good or bad thing for me yet. My name is," insert your name. Okay, so let's look at this individually. "You have such a mysterious smile." Good line. I like it. "I can't tell if it's a good or bad thing for me yet." Good line. I like it. "My name is," introducing yourself. Good thing to do in game. I like it. So you have three things that all individually are pretty decent and all individually kind of make sense. But let's look at them together. "You have such a mysterious smile. I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing for you yet. For me yet, sorry." Now, "you have such a mysterious smile," the point of that is for it to be intriguing. The point of that is for the girl to wonder. And also the point of it is for it to seem not try hard, to seem like you just made a casual comment and you're not looking for a reaction. As soon as you add that second part, "I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing for me yet," well, now you're making it into a line, you're making it not casual, you're clearing up any kind of intrigue she might have had because you're clarifying. So you're absolutely killing all the good things about the first line with the second line, and you're making it seem like a line instead of seem like something that just happened. So it's just bad. Everything that was good about it, you just destroyed, right? You took something beautiful and you destroyed it. Next one, now you add my name is whatever. Now the issue here is you just theoretically teased the girl, right? And the point of a tease is for the girl to get an emotional reaction, be put in a particular frame, and maybe be a little insecure, be wondering if you like her, feel the desire to qualify herself, the desire to win the frame battle, something along those lines. But then when you introduce yourself right at the very end, that's like the olive branch, right? It's like declaring war and giving her the olive branch in the same sentence. Be like, oh, I declare war, I'm just kidding, white flag, right? It takes away, again, all the power of what you just did, and it makes it, again, seem like it's a line and you're just doing it to make her like you, you're doing it for a reaction. And so the first part was good, the second part made it worse, the third part made it even worse, and overall it's incongruent and bad. So this is a case of 3 good elements strung together to make one very bad element. Overall, I dislike this. I would say C tier, maybe C minus tier even. It's not good. Although, again, any of these individually, if it was you have such a mysterious smile, great. That's like, that's like a B tier, even low A tier kind of thing. Can't tell if it's a good or bad thing for you yet. If she asked, is that a good thing or is that good or not? But I don't know. I can't tell yet. That would be good. As a responsive thing to her asking the question, that actually could be B tier or even A tier. And introducing yourself is, it's hard to say that that's even a flirt or whatever, but as something doing game, something very useful to doing game, it's probably an A tier thing to do at some point in the interaction. So you have these 3 B to A tier elements, putting them together to make, what did I say, C minus tier? Yeah, congruence matters. All right, next up we have the line, my mom told me I shouldn't date crazy girls anymore. And I mostly like this one, but it's very, very contextual. It very much depends on how the girl is perceiving you, right? And it depends very much on the context with the girl. If you can make it quite playful and you can make it imply that you think she's crazy, but without being too try hard and too much explained, if you're like, I think you're crazy and my mom says I shouldn't date crazy girls anymore, now it's too logical and it doesn't quite work, right? But if there's the right moment and the right context where like maybe she says something a little bit off the wall and instead of even responding to it, you just look at her and be like, my mom told me I shouldn't date crazy girls anymore, right? So it's almost like it's not even directly related, but it's not thrown in out of nowhere. It has to be in response to something, but it can't be such a linear response. So this is really good given that very narrow window of delivery. If delivered that way, this is A tier, maybe even S tier. Right? If delivered in that blasé reaction to something else, backhanded kind of way, I think it's awesome. However, if you are just saying this out of nowhere without context, I think it's actually quite bad. It's probably like B minus tier or something like that. If it's in response to a question, like you say something and then she qualifies herself or asks if that's a good thing, and then you say, well, my mom said I shouldn't date crazy girls anymore. Now all of a sudden it's good again. So this one really depends on the context. If it's delivered out of nowhere, it's quite mediocre to maybe even slightly bad. If it's delivered with the perfect context and timing, it could be really, really good. So this is not a go-to. This isn't one you should be saying in every single interaction and forcing into the conversation, but given the right situation, it can be very, very good. Next line we have is, you can't look at me like that and not come talk to me. And that is a really interesting line. And if you've watched, my videos where I talk about flirtatious lines and which are good ones, or the other video where I ranked the opening lines, you'll know that anything that's based on a reaction and seems spontaneous, I tend to like a lot more than something that's not. So this very idea of you can't look at me like that thrown in is something I do really, really like. And that does tend to raise things up the tier list for me, for sure, especially given a proper context. Now, obviously, if you say you can't look at me like that, when the girl hasn't ever looked at you, it doesn't work. So this only works maybe off of actual eye contact or off of like at least a glance across the face or something like that, right? So you need that. So the fact that it's in reaction, I really, really like. However, you can't look at me like that and not come talk to me. The implication here, the frame here, I don't love. It's not terrible. It is flirty, it is teasing, and it's not so bad in that regard, but it is indicating that the girl would be doing you a favor by talking to you as opposed to you doing a favor by talking to her, right? So that I subtly don't like. So I don't think this one's like pure or perfect. Therefore, even though the reaction part is very good, because of this negative frame, because of the frame that she would be doing a favor by talking to you, or that you specifically were hoping she would talk to you, those are not great frames. Those are not frames of a high value, abundant guy. And for that reason, even with the reaction part being very good, I gotta give this one B tier at best. Unfortunately, it's very close. It's very much an almost, and there's some great elements to it, but I don't like the second part of it. This next line is definitely an attempt at copying a line directly from me, so take it with a grain of salt how I rank it. That said, I don't think the delivery is quite right. And again, I'm really harping on the verbals here, right? I'm really harping on not just having the right idea, but the right phrasing, because it really does make a difference, okay? I really honestly do believe that in a lot of these cases, the right phrasing will bump something up at least a tier, sometimes even 2 tiers. So it does really matter. The line here is, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. I'm enjoying liking you. Don't ruin it. Okay, and what they're doing here is they're trying to copy a line I've said, which is, yeah, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that because I was kind of starting to like you. Or I'm going to pretend you didn't say that because I was enjoying liking you up to now. Something like that. And notice the slight subtle difference. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. First of all, yeah, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that, or I'm just going to pretend you didn't say that. Adding that extra casual word, or yeah, or I'm just, or whatever, makes it more casual and less formal. It's a subtle difference, but it does matter. And then I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. I'm enjoying liking you. Don't ruin it. There's too many ideas in this sentence, right? I'm going to pretend you didn't say that because I was enjoying liking you. Then saying don't ruin it is redundant. It's extra words for no particular reason. Also, the don't ruin it thing, it just sounds like very formal. Like if you were going to say don't ruin it, you say like, please don't ruin it, right? It's an added word, but it's a word that's a conversational word. It's a word that people say when they're being casual. It's a word that people say that indicates that they're actually like experiencing the moment with the person and not delivering a line. So this is a really good possible line. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that because I was liking you so far, because I'm trying to have a crush on you. All those different versions, I really like all those. And actually, to be fair, like in the right context, those are S tier lines. Those are lines I use myself. However, this one is just delivered a little bit off. It's a little too wordy. It's a little too formal. It's not quite right. It's missing those little words that make it actual conversation as opposed to a delivered line. And so for this reason, I'm going to take what would be an S tier S tier line, and I'm going to make it A minus. Right? It's still good. It's still definitely good, but it's definitely lost a lot of its punch. It's gone from great to merely good. All right, the next line we have is a really funny one, a really interesting one, and it's not even a line so much as almost a format. So it's you are my favorite blank. And I think the intention here is to insert a name, be like you are my favorite Christina, or you are my favorite Mary, or whatever, right? So the idea here is you're giving a compliment, you're my favorite, but then you're narrowing it to like a very small category so that it's less of a compliment, right? So if you say like, you are my favorite woman in the world, that's whoa, huge pedestal. You're my favorite Mary, okay, less so, right? And if you added something more specific, which is what I will do oftentimes if I deliver this line, it can become much better even, right? You are my favorite like 4'11" Sandra from Seattle, right? Does that make sense? So something like that is going to make it much more clear that you're just joking around, right? And you can even add a tease in there, right? You're my favorite dorky 5'3" hairstylist, right? Does that make sense? So you can make these very specific things that make it very clear that you're my favorite you, essentially. And so it's a non-compliment, but it sounds like a compliment going in. And I think this is a very good line. I think it's great in context. Even just that you're my favorite name is pretty good. But if you can add an extra specific or even a tease onto the specific, I think it's better. So as listed here with just you're my favorite and name, I'll give it A tier. If you could make it more specific, it would be a line that I use myself and a line that I think is very good, especially given the right context, in which case I would bump it up to actually being an S tier flirt. So I hope you like those flirty lines, and I hope you can take some of those, take the A tier and the S tier ones, and start implementing them in your game right away. But hopefully beyond that, you also learned something about flirting, like what makes a good flirt? Well, there's a couple different things. Number one, flirting is not logical. If it's too logical, too wordy, too boring, it's not flirting. If it's insulting, it's not flirting. If it comes from a bad frame, it may be flirting, but it's not going to help you very much. If it comes off like it's a line being delivered, it doesn't come off as subtle. If it comes off as try hard, it's not going to be a very good flirt. And finally, words matter. The difference between the right word or right phrasing and the almost right word or phrasing can be a difference of 20 to 25% in the effectiveness of the line. And that's 20 to 25% is absolutely huge. It's the difference between being an average guy who fits in and being a guy who stands out and is memorable and gets the girl. It's absolutely huge, and it's the easiest thing to fix. Having a better frame, having a better idea, coming up with a better idea is hard. Phrasing it this much better to make it this much better is so easy, and that's actually why I love verbal game and why I put so much focus and emphasis on it. So with that in mind, go check out verbalgameacademy.com, where I go into crazy depth about verbal game. You're gonna love the lessons there. If you even liked this video a little bit, you're going to love the content over there. So go check it out, verbalgameacademy.com. That said, check it out. I'll see you there, and I'll see you next time here. Thanks for tuning in.